So I have a confession to make. I haven't seen a whole lot of Sylvester Stallone movies. And by a lot, I mean I've never seen Rocky. I've never seen Rocky 2 or 3 or 4. I've seen Creed. But this month is all about Sylvester Stallone movies because I hadn't seen any at all. So let's just out him at the beginning of the podcast. Let's just out him at the beginning of the podcast, I guess. But this is like the Stallone action movie other than Rambo. Mike's making a face like that's not the case. I thought it was. I was under the impression it was.
Not really. This is kind of, I would say it's not minor Stallone, but it's not one that gets talked about. It's not Cobra, you know.
Oh, that's fair. I've never seen
Cobra. Pantheon. It's not over the top.
Oh, yeah, where he's a trucker who arm wrestles.
Yes, but I would say that Cliffhanger is probably one of his most solid films.
Yeah, I would somewhat agree. I mean, I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about because it's kind of a weird movie, and by kind of a weird movie, I would say that sometimes I was having a hard time figuring out what was going on, only because a lot of the sets in the movie seem to just look the same over and over and over again. There's a lot of cliffs and people falling off of cliffs. And on this episode of the Culture Cast, we're back after a month of July that was all fun and all smiles, everybody. Yahoo! We're back for August to talk about Sylvester Stallone movies, and we're kicking it off with Cliffhanger from 1993. And I'm joined by my two good friends all the way from the Projection Booth Podcast. He is the host of the best movie podcast on the internet, Mike White.
In a minute, I'll be dead, and you will always be an asshole.
And all the way from Flick Attack, Rod Lott.
Wrong answer, motherfucker.
I'm going to treat your bitch right. That was my favorite.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God.
Sexual politics of the early 90s, folks.
Hey, baby. Yes, that's right. On this episode of the Culture Cast, we are taking a look at our first Stallone movie of the month with 1993's Cliffhanger.
Please, I don't want to die.
You're not going to die.
Don't let me fall.
Matheson has been transferred from the Denver office to Frisco, and as a professional courtesy between offices, I was asked if he could hitch a ride.
Got plenty of room. Be glad to accommodate you.
We just got an emergency call at 5 climbers just ran off Combe Bluff.
I haven't climbed in months. You just lose the feel.
Maybe you mean the nerve.
Where's the helicopter?
What the hell's going on?
What are your names?
Tucker and Walker.
Well, Tucker and Walker, we're missing 3 bags.
What's in them?
None of your fucking business! Fudge!
Where is the money?
So the film is directed by Rennie Harlan, based on a screenplay by Michael France and Sylvester Stallone, with a story by Michael France, based on a premise by John Long. Boy, there's a lot of qualifiers here. It stars Sylvester Stallone, British John Lithgow, Michael Rooker, Janine Turner, Leon Robinson, Paul Winfield, and Ralph Waite. And it's all about Sylvester Stallone playing a mountain rescue ranger who loses a woman at the beginning of the movie, which was a scene I had only ever seen in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. Because that's how that movie opens, is with a parody of Cliffhanger of all things, almost a shot-for-shot parody. And then after Stallone loses his friend's girlfriend, he goes into, I guess, seclusion, and then he's brought back in to help what he thinks are people trapped on a mountain, but it turns out it's robbers who have stolen money, unmarked $1,000 bills, and it was a heist gone awry, and now the money is in the mountains, and they have to go and save the people, ? There's a lot going on. We'll talk about it, but I'm going to kick it to Rod Lott first. Rod, first time you saw this movie, what did you think then? Watching it now for the Culture Cast, what did you think now?
I saw it opening weekend in 93. I was really not a Stallone fan at the time. I mean, I as a kid, Rocky was like, I think from my generation, like our first exposure to Sylvester Stallone, at least our first understanding of who he was, and loved him then. But by the time Cliffhanger had come out, he had gone through a lot of ups and downs, more downs than ups. This was like the start of his comeback, at least the first comeback, if I recall. I really liked it then. I remember buying it on VHS when it came out and liking it again then. I hadn't seen it since then, so it's been a long time. And I still like it. It's not as good as I once remembered it to be, but I'm with Mike. It is one of his more solid movies.
Same questions to you, Mike.
Well, I wasn't in the same theater that Rod was in, but I definitely saw it that opening weekend. Huge Stallone fan, even though, yeah, he was having a rocky time of it. Wah, 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 with things like, Rainbow 3, I wasn't a big fan of, though I do praise the Mujahideen that movie supports. Rocky 5 was kind of a shit show. Oscar, I actually really liked. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, I haven't seen, so I cannot pass judgment. It might be one of the best movies ever made. And then he does Cliffhanger, and boom, he's right back on top again with that and Demolition Man. And then he starts to tail off again right after with The Specialist and then Judge Dredd. Though I do find a lot of fun in Judge Dredd, but yeah, he's up and down in his career. But this movie was absolutely rock solid. I watched it quite a few times when it was on cable back in the early 90s, mid 90s, I should say more. And I really haven't seen it since then. So revisiting it for the podcast, it was funny. All of my same complaints from 1993 were still there, and all of the excitement was still there as well. So I had a lot of fun watching this again. I was excited to be invited on this one to talk about it.
So I realize now, sitting here, listening to you guys talk about other Stallone movies, that I have seen some other things, but I think they're things that Demolition Man, which has its moments. I'm not going to speak for either of you, but it's a fun movie, fun enough.
Fucking love Demolition Man.
Send a maniac to catch a maniac. That's a great line. One of the best lines in cinema. And then Wesley Snipes doing a really poorly advised Asian patois in one scene, which I will never understand, but you know what? Whatever. In Deadpool, did he say retard in Deadpool? Was that him? Or was that Deadpool? One of the two said it. I think it might have been Wesley Snipes. It wouldn't surprise me if it was. Somebody said it at one point in that movie, because I remember being like, whoa, this movie's a thing. But yeah, Wesley Snipes and that movie is weird. Again, like, I don't really think of Stallone in that movie as much as I think of Wesley Snipes. When I think of Stallone, I guess the things I should be thinking of that stick out to me are Judge Dredd, which is without a doubt, I mean, Jesus, it's fine. It's an interesting looking movie.
Sure is, yeah.
Rob Schneider and Armand DeSanti, boy, what a fucking cast that is.
Yeah.
We covered that back in 2015 and got to talk to Armand DeSanti when we did that. That was a thing.
Shit.
Yeah,
wow.
Man, I know, right? Well, he was promoting some other fucking movie that nobody cared about, but it's like, well, you want to talk about Judge Dredd for a while? Mm-hmm. So to your point, John Landis's Oscar, Cullen and I covered that last year, maybe, when we did like comedy mafia movies, and that movie's fine. I mean, It's fun. I mean, it's a Sylvester Stallone comedy. I mean, here's the thing. Before I talk about my feelings on Cliffhanger, I want to say I think the reason Stallone is not a actor that I have seen a lot of is because I watched the other guy's stuff way more often, which is Schwarzenegger. I mean, you're kind of... For me, it's not like, it wasn't Marvel and DC where it's like one or the other. I mean, they treated it that way, clearly. I mean, they felt that way about each other to the point of, the Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, where Schwarzenegger baited Stallone into being in that movie. But I watched a lot more Schwarzenegger stuff than I've seen any of Stallone's stuff. And so that's the reason I wanted to do this month. So getting down to Cliffhanger and sitting down and watching it, I enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of On Deadly Ground, the Seagal movie, because there's a lot of like running around in the mountains and people falling off of cliffs. Look, the movie's called Cliffhanger. I get it. So half of the movie is just people falling to their deaths. But when the movie's not just doing that, I think it's actually better than it has any right to be. But there's a lot of this movie that, I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said a lot of the sets look very similar. a lot. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on some of the time. Like the sets are very similar, and half the time Stallone's just falling down the side of a mountain. So I will say I enjoyed it. I do think that I think the supporting cast of the movie, I think, probably outshines Stallone. But that's what happens when you have John Lithgow and Michael Rooker in your movie, who are, I mean, two of the great, I think, actors, period. And then you have, other kind of minor actors, just, minor character actors showing up as well. I really like the idea of this movie being a bunch of dudes with bozo rings. Like, it's a bunch of like half bald dudes like John Lithgow and Rex Linn. Like the idea that Rex Linn is a main villain in this movie is fucking insane to me. That there was a universe where they were like, he needs to be the main villain in an action movie. Cause what? That to me was probably the most surprising part of this movie, is that Rex Linn is a main villain in a 90s action movie. Of all the actors, that was just bizarre to me.
The character actors just rule in this movie. I mean, that you have the little cadre of FBI guys all being led by Paul Winfield. And then you've got Zach Renier in there, who most people know as Jack's boss from Fight Club. You've got John Finn, who is always fantastic. But yeah, fucking Bruce McGill.
I was about to say D-Day, baby.
Oh, yeah. And who's the guy who saves the whole story? Like this whole movie comes down to one character actor, Craig Fairbrass, I believe. Is that right?
No, it's Vito Ruginis, the guy who unloads right at the end with the Uzi and saves the whole movie.
Right, exactly. That guy. Yes, he's amazing. And that he's the character actor who, like, oh, these guys are doing a heist. I have to stop them. And this whole movie would not happen if this guy hadn't happened to be on that plane and be really good at his job and just fucks up their entire plan. I love it. He's really the true hero of the whole movie.
And then you have Max Perlich as well.
Oh my God, yeah. Max Perlich, the darling of indies at this time. It's like any smaller role, like what was it, Beautiful Girls or Drugstore Cowboy. He would just show up in these like little tiny roles, and then him as like, yo, dude, we're gonna go extreme and jump off this mountain. I'm like, where did this come from?
Yeah, exactly. And the guy from the Waltons, Ralph Waite,
yes,
man, this is like, I think the only movie I'm aware, at least that I'm aware that he's in. I'm sure he's in others. And
he was actually on the blacklist for a while. And
really?
Like the Waltons was kind of like this blacklist haven between him and Will Greer. And yeah, like those two showed up in a couple other things. I want to say he was in Executive Decision, the one that was talking about the Kennedy assassination. And Waite was also one of the enemies, one of the bad guys, a white cop who is corrupt in Trouble Man, and he's freaking amazing in that.
Oh, I've not seen that one.
Oh, that's a good one. Definitely check that out.
Well, yeah, now looking at his page, he's in a lot of movies. He's just not like the star. And going back to Ace Ventura, he's in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective Jr.
Oh, okay.
The first one. I actually like the second one more than I like the first one, to be perfectly honest with you guys.
Do not ever watch Ace Ventura: Pet Detective Jr.
It's just
is that the third one?
That's the third one
with the kid.
It's Courtney Cox and Ace Ventura's son is what the
yeah.
Isn't that what it is? Isn't that what the premise of the movie is?
Ralph Waite plays Grandpa Ventura.
Oh my God! Why is that a thing?
I erased that from my mind. But my favorite character actor in this whole thing, and I didn't know his name then, but I sure know it now, is Gregory Scott Cummins. He's one of the bad guys, and he's in Action USA and Phantom the Mall and Hack-O-Lantern and Blood Gang,
and he's Mac's dad on It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, and he's on Bosch, and like he's really good now. You know, he plays good guys now on TV shows, but back then he was like always the bad guy. But I really like him. He's got quite a thing going on.
And we all thought that Leon was just going to break out after his amazing role in Cool Runnings. And then he does this. I mean, it's a 1-2 punch. 1993, this guy's on top of the world. Yeah.
He even existed. And then when his name popped up in the credits, it's just Leon. I was like, oh, yeah, that guy was a thing.
He was.
for a brief period of time.
I think he has the
think he's
best
a thing
death.
anymore.
I think he has the best death in the entire movie. I
Can
mean,
you imagine the strength it would take to lift Leon up over your head and then murder him by shoving him through stalactites through him? That's wild.
yeah. And that's the thing about this movie. Like, when the movie is trying with the action, it's really, I don't know, it's really successful because there's not a whole lot of movies like this one. I mean, I can't think of another. I mean, there's what's the Clint Eastwood movie where they're on the Eiger Sanction? I mean, that's another kind of mountain movie.
Vertical Limit.
The Vertical Limits, but Vertical Limits is more about like the people versus the mountain, right?
I don't remember exactly, but it reminded me of Cliffhanger, so I'm going to say
That's fair. This has like a Point Break aspect to it, though. That's the thing that, like, I guess, like, that's what I knew about the movie, is that there was like, oh, they're trying to get money. It's not, they're just trying to save people. And that, I think, is, for me, that's the fun part of the movie, is that it kind of subverts your expectations, because you don't expect it to be this kind of pseudo heist movie initially. And then it again, like, I don't know. I think it's the beginning of the movie's fun, where they're in the airplane and all of that. But then when they get to the mountain, it's some of the set pieces, like the set piece where Rex Lynn dies, literally looks like a set.
That is the worst part of this movie for me. It's just how fakey that set is. And even in 1993, it was just like, whoa, what happened? They just turned left onto a set someplace. This is wild.
Like, and it's beyond it. When I saw that scene, I was like, oh my God, what is happening here? It's the fakiest looking shit I've ever seen in an action movie out of the 90s. I mean, it is so set bound. And the thing is, when they were clearly shooting in real places. I mean, it's obvious that they're actually on, like, in location. And so when you go to a scene like that, it's like, wow, that is very set bound. And again, I have a problem with Rex Lynn being a villain in this movie that we're supposed to take seriously.
He so reminds me of, now I don't watch Breaking Bad, but what's the bald guy? Dean Norris. He reminds me a lot of Dean Norris in this one. But yeah, he always just seems so flustered in this movie. He's just like, well, God damn it, what are you going to do? I'm just like, calm down, man. Calm down. Before I go too far, when the music opens to this movie, did anyone consider that there was going to be people walking out to this and announcing who the next best supporting actor is? I mean, this just so becomes Oscar music in the few years afterwards.
Oh, I know, right?
Well, and the font used for the credits is this very prestige-y, Tony looking face that it's not like the big block letters on the poster. It's, like the United Artists logo, that serify gold stuff going on. It's just completely at odds with the movie that follows, but whatever.
It's a prestige picture.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the way the movie opens, it kind of is trying to be, is what it feels like. Like I mentioned the Ace Ventura, the opening of Ace Ventura ripping this movie off. Like, the movie is trying to be way too serious at the beginning of the movie. And it just, like, doesn't tonally jive with the rest of the movie. Like, I get the beginning of the movie and I get what they were going for. But for me, like you guys have both already alluded to, like, in a lot of ways, I feel like the movie could have been more fun. Like, there could have been a sense of fun, more fun to this movie, and it feels like it kind of wants to be somewhat of a character piece about Stallone. And it's like, I'm not sure I care. Those scenes at the beginning of the movie between him and Janine Turner are not great. I'm not saying Stallone's not a great dramatic actor, far from it, but those scenes at the beginning of the movie with the two of them where he's like, I don't want to go back up to the mountain. It's like, this is not really compelling at all. I'm again, like, Schwarzenegger and Stallone are at their best when they're not necessarily being asked to do a lot of the heavy, serious lifting in movies.
Yeah, that opening with her is pretty unearned. But I have to say, the opening of the movie with the rock climbing, it really reminded me of, Star Trek V, as well as Mission Impossible 2.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's watching Stallone hanging from that rock, I was just like, yeah, whatever, Tom Cruise. Sylvester Stallone did this so many years before you did.
He's the rock jock, as the rock jock Gabe.
And it's pretty smart starting off with that opening death, too, which really just kind of shows you what the stakes are, sets us up for everything. But yeah, it feels like there should have been a little bit between that and when he comes back, because it just feels like almost the next day, but Thank goodness we have the heist in between there to break it up a little bit.
Well, in the title, 8 years later, or
Yeah.
8 months later. Sorry, 8 months later.
Only 8 months? Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess he
Yeah.
got over it pretty quick.
Yeah, right. I mean, and again, like I mentioned with Ace Ventura, like Ace Ventura parodied it because in Ace Ventura, it's a raccoon that falls to its death, not a person. And like, I knew that that's how this movie opened. And when I end up watching this movie and seeing it, it just, I knew that the movie was going to be fun. And so to have the movie open with this like serious set piece, just, again, I get what they were going for, but I don't know why Stallone's character had to be conflicted because he went onto the mountain very quickly. There wasn't a lot of him that he didn't have to be convinced that hard to go deal with what was going on. He just kind of went.
I think that's Stallone's meddling with the screenplay. Word. Some of the stuff I've read about, he has a screenplay credit, but apparently his contributions were extremely limited to maybe his dialogue, and that's about it. I think he thought the movie was more serious than it plays to be, or at least he hoped it would be. He's not. I think that's something that with Stallone. I mean, he started out as a dramatic actor, right? Or at least
In Rocky, right?
Well, he was a
But ever since then, he's he goes up and he goes down. He goes from comedy to action to here and there and everywhere. But back, this was like a really high stakes comeback vehicle for him. And, it was before Copland, before he like really went hard on the dramatic again. I think he wanted it to be more serious than it was. And, he's a director in his own right. And Rennie Harlan at this point had not done a ton. I mean, a couple big hits, yes, but I'm sure he muscles his way around a set with directors and screenwriters and
I'm frankly surprised he took a screenwriting credit because he seems to do a lot of stuff behind the scenes and doesn't even take that credit.
Yeah.
So you guys mentioned Rennie Harlan, and so this I was mentioning this to you guys before we started recording, but in the documentary Never Sleep Again, the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, they talk about, and obviously Rennie Harlan directed Nightmare on Elm Street for the Dream Master, and they talk about how he got essentially his foot in the door in the States. So he went to Bob Shaye's office and would just sit in his waiting room outside waiting to try to get to talk to him to try and convince him to direct a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, to the point where Bob Shaye's secretary was like, this guy smells bad, because he was like essentially like he was just living essentially in squalor trying to get a job in the States as a director. And so it's weird because Rennie Harlan, I mean, he's directed some decent stuff, right? I mean, I would say this is pretty good. Die Hard 2. Die Hard 2 is probably the best Die Hard sequel.
I'm not going to say 3 on that one, but that's okay.
I haven't seen 3 in a long time.
I prefer 2 to 1.
I love the first 3.
Well, to be fair, the second one has Bill Sadler in it, which I think for me is, you get to see his ass at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. Bare ass Bill Sadler.
John Amos just, oh yeah. But I mean, I love Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Yeah, he has some really fun movies, and he has like some turds.
I mean, Long Kiss Goodnight, I really enjoyed that one.
It's a great one. Deep Blue Sea is a lot of fun.
And apparently got along well with Stallone because I believe Stallone was in Driven, right?
He sure was.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't think Harlan directed that. Was it called ICU or?
No, he didn't.
Okay, but it feels like a Rennie Harlan film to me.
It does feel like that.
Yeah. So take that as you will.
It is weird though that, because I mean, Rennie Harlan, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, that was a big hit back then. But that Elm Street sequel would send a director to the top of the A-list is bizarre to think about these days. But that's exactly what happened, because he got Die Hard 2 off that.
He literally, the day after Dream Master opened, in that Never Sleep Again documentary, he talks about Steven Spielberg calling him the next day, and he thought he was kidding. He's like, there's no way. And it was like, nope, Spielberg reached out to you like the next day because of how successful the movie was. It's fucking crazy. That's the thing, like Rennie Harlan, for all of the things that he's made that I think people may not like, and Father Malone, him and I were talking earlier, and apparently Cutthroat Island, is that a good movie or a bad movie?
I enjoyed it.
I think it's bad, but I don't like pirate movies in general. So
That's fair.
I love Gina Davis, though, who was Mrs. Rennie Harlan at the time, I believe.
yes.
But I mean, to y'all's point, I mean, he's directed some decent stuff. I've heard that the most recent Strangers movie is not good, which is unfortunate. And he's now on the hook for not just one, but two more of those movies. I think Rennie Harlan was a good director for this movie because I think he understands how to film action for the most part. I think, again, I'm not sure because some of this movie I really just don't. Some of this movie I'm not a huge fan of because, like I said, the set pieces just kind of mesh together. I mean, there are some fun ones like when they're on the bridge or when they're in that cave, but some of the stuff kind of in between that just doesn't. It doesn't really stand out. It's not particularly memorable. And you know, with a movie called Cliffhanger, you would expect there to be a little bit more memorable set pieces, just given what this movie is.
I think that's fair. It didn't really occur to me until this viewing at how that's the case. Like that last half sort of just seems to hit a cycle where you're like, it's like, yeah, people are falling down the snow and, that goes on and on and on. And it, you know, they get to the bridge and it seems to take forever for them to get over the bridge and then to the next part. And it really is drawn out. Whereas I think the first half moves faster, even with, you know, the setup, you know, after the opening, this whole setup of getting him back to the mountain or mountain, as one of the bad guys says, mountain, that stuff just moves faster. And I think that actually is a problem I have with a lot of blockbusters in general is that the third act is usually the least interesting act. And I think that's the case here too.
Yeah, it is so much about just dispatching the bad guys. And you're right. It's an odd movie in that there is supposed to be this pathos to it, but yet it's also trying to follow these action movie tropes. So like when one of the bad guys falls off a cliff, I'm just like, okay, now's the time for Stallone to say something quippy, but he doesn't say something quippy. There's a few beats. And then Michael Rooker goes, gravity's a bitch, isn't it? And I'm like, okay, there's the funny line, but it's like 5 minutes too late. It feels like, so yeah, it is odd the way that they do that. You mentioned Judge Dredd before. And with that movie, when I saw it the first time, I was just like, oh, okay, so we've got Joan Chen and Diane Lane. So they're going to have to fight later on in the movie because a woman cannot fight a man and a man really can't fight a woman in these movies. So they always have to have a woman versus woman fight. And I was surprised that if memory serves, they don't have a woman versus woman fight. They even have a woman in the bad guy group, but she doesn't fight Janine Turner, or am I misremembering?
No, you're not, because John Lithgow just murders her. John Lithgow just murders most of the people in this movie. It's just
well, and Janine Turner, who I love, by the way, I think she's incredibly cute. Loved her at Northern Exposure. I think she's pretty solid in this movie. She is disarmed, ladies and gentlemen, by Leon just saying to her, "No bullets, bitch," and then she can't do anything after that. It's almost like he cast a stun spell on her and she just is there frozen because she can't do anything. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'll just let Gabe hoist you over his head and murder you with the stalactite.
Yeah, she's not given much to do.
No, it's a very thankless role. And that was one of the things I really hated about this movie when I saw it the first time. I mean, I like a lot of the action. The other thing I always have a problem with, and now stick with me here, guys, is that so John Lithgow comes down, he's done the heist, we've got all this stuff, we've got the bad guys. He eventually tricks Michael Rooker and Stallone to come on out. You know, there's this emergency distress call. They show up. He goes, "What are your names?" And I think it's Rooker goes, "We're Walker and Tucker," but he never says who's Walker and who's Tucker. So I always thought it would be great if he misnames them, like, because it doesn't matter. Like if John Lithgow suddenly thinks that Sylvester Stallone is Tucker and Michael Rooker is Walker, it'd be great because then when they get on the horn to, Janine Turner or to Ralph Waite's character, they could be like, well, what the fuck? Why is he calling him Gabe rather than Al or vice versa? I thought that would be a great twist. Like you never asked who was who or whatever, but they never do that. So he just assumes
Why don't you have a screenplay credit on this?
I know. It
Right.
would have been great, right? Yeah, that's like, come on. Because he even does like that kind of like, oh, I'm going to meet you at the so-and-so. And it's like, oh, well, that's Gabe's code for this. And like, we'll meet him here. Or, oh, that the tallest peak, that sounds like this. So, yeah. But yeah, nothing with the names. And there's such similar names, too, with Walker and Tucker.
Yeah, totally.
But I love the fact that Michael Rooker is in this movie.
Fucking Michael Rooker. I kept waiting for when one of the bad guys is yelling at him, I kept waiting for him to go, well, doobly doobly doo.
It cracks me up to think that Michael Rooker is one of the best characters in the MCU. That to me will never be a thing that I can't get over because Michael Rooker, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, is one of the most popular characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And here he is in this movie just, kind of upstaging everybody. I mean, he's like you said, Mike, he gets the fun lines for the most part. Stallone gets one or two, but it doesn't work with his character at all. Stallone's character is written too flat in this movie. And that's, again, I haven't seen enough Stallone movies to know, but is this the way he is for the most part, or do they allow him to be fun? Because Schwarzenegger was always having the pithy one-liners. Ice that guy, Colna phrase. I mean, shit like that is what I think of when I think of Schwarzenegger. And Stallone, it's like he doesn't want to have fun. He just wants to be serious, which I get, but that for me is not a winning combination. I would rather watch an action movie where they're having a good time, not trying to be serious. At least with this kind of action movie. An action movie set on the side of a mountain for 3/4 of the time.
It was definitely Schwarzenegger's thing, his trademark. If you read the book, The Last Action Heroes, that came out last year.
You meant Sing?
About this time. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's about all the 80s action heroes.
Oh,
We talk about
he wrote the one about the villains.
Evolved, and it was Schwarzenegger's thing. I mean, it's not like only Schwarzenegger. Bruce Willis did it in Die Hard, which that was Stephen D. Souza, who wrote that and who wrote some of those Schwarzenegger things. So
he also wrote what was supposed to be the sequel to this called Damn.
Yeah. So Stallone did start to try and copy it, but it never. It's like he didn't have the right screenwriters behind him, I think, to pull it off. And I don't think he could quite pull it off either because their personas are different, even though they seem to, if you just had it on paper, it's like, here's a guy who really can't speak English great. Here's a guy who also can't really speak English great. But they do have very different personas. And it really worked for Schwarzenegger. He had the charm that I don't always think Stallone has. Obviously, I think Stallone is the better actor of the two, but I think Schwarzenegger is the better movie star of the two, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I think that's one reason why Schwarzenegger was able to pull those off, not just because he had the right people feeding it to him, but he was able to deliver it the right way. And Stallone here, he tries a little bit, but yeah, it's like they give it to Michael Rooker a lot because I think he just delivers them better. I don't know if that was in the screenplay or not, but it's how it turns out.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think that may be why I haven't really gone out of my way to see Stallone movies, because I do prefer when I watch an action movie for it to be a little bit more on the fun side, or at least like willing to. I mean, look, the optics of a hero taunting when he kills someone is not necessarily great, because it's like, this guy's a fucking sociopath. Like, he just killed this guy and he's, like, I mean, Schwarzenegger in Commando, I mean, his character is a straight fucking sociopath. I mean,
stick around. And also Steve Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a good time, but let's not kid ourselves. When a guy's dropping one-liners after murdering people, it is a little odd. So I get what Stallone may have been going for in terms of like, I need to be serious because I shouldn't be cracking jokes when I murder people, but it's a fucking action movie. Like, I'm not going to say get over it, but I don't know. I mean, for me, Stallone I get what he's going for in this movie, but I think if this movie had Schwarzenegger in it, it probably would have been a little bit more fun.
I would agree with that. Totally. And I can't wait to see Cobra.
Well, that's the thing. That's the one that I've heard that everybody really likes. I mean, that's like the Stallone movie, right?
It's so not a fan of that movie.
It's not good, but it is great in a way. Its own terrible way.
Yeah, I can see that. And yeah, I can see why people like it. And I think people like it ironically, and they don't want to admit it if they actually do like it. If they say, oh, no, I'm sincerely like this. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think you actually do.
Yeah, agreed. Tango and Cash is, I think, a legitimately fun one.
Oof, I'm
That's
not a
where
fan of that one.
That's where I think he does the comedy a little better, but it's got its problems, definitely. I do want to mention that book I talked about, The Last Action Heroes, is by a guy named Nick D. Semlyen, Semlyen. It's terrific. And It is about Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Bruce Willis, Steven Seagal, Dolph Lundgren, Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Jackie Chan. It goes through all the 1980s runs of those guys. And it's an incredible read. They do talk about the catchphrases thing that we were talking about, but also just the rivalry between Stallone and Schwarzenegger, which you talked about, Chris, like how real it was. Like they weren't kidding around. They hated each other.
They were trying to compete for the same essentially market share. But that's the thing. I don't feel like they were. I feel like for a group of people, and I think it's a bigger group of people, Schwarzenegger was a better action star and a movie star because he resonated with more people. Stallone, I think, understands his worth, but I think he maybe thinks his worth is a little too much. And I think, look, Schwarzenegger doesn't have any fucking writing credits on anything at all. Like, he never interjected himself into things the way that Stallone did. And look, like we've already alluded to, Stallone wrote Rocky. He won the fucking Oscar for it. This is the first thing he writes, and he wins an Oscar for screenplay. So
didn't win. He was nominated.
I thought he won.
No, he's not. He's not won one. He's been nominated, I think, 3 times, but he's not won.
He's been nominated 3 more times than Schwarzenegger will probably ever be nominated, which is unfortunate. Schwarzenegger will win an honorary Oscar. I think that's, for contributions to the world of cinema. But Schwarzenegger never interjected himself into things the way Stallone clearly has. And I think that there is something to be said for, like you said, Rod, a movie star understanding, not quote, understanding your place, but understanding that there are people who can write scripts better than you can. You just need to be the guy to show up and do the lines and knock it out of the park. And Schwarzenegger, for me, is that guy. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit less just fun, I can understand why Stallone, at least with something like this, might scratch the itch a different itch in a different way. But I don't know. I guess Stallone, in my mind, so you guys have kind of already alluded to it, but what is, for y'all, whichever one of you wants to go first, what is the quintessential Sylvester Stallone role? Is it Rocky?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it is.
That's what it's Rocky, and if not that, it's Rambo. He's going to be remembered for those 2 things.
Though Rambo is such a different character between First Blood and the rest of the Rambo films.
Completely. Yeah. That last Rambo movie was like a Lucio Fulci film.
Yeah. The First Blood it's a great film and based on a great book, very well directed by Ted Kotcheff. You've got, Brian Dennehy just doing a wonderful job in there as well. That whole movie really comes together in a great way.
It's a drama. Yeah.
You would never know from Rambo 2 and 3 and then the subsequent ones. I think I've only seen ever 2 and 3, and I want to say I watched or tried to watch John Rambo, and I was just like, yeah, this is silly.
Is that the one where he's fighting the cartels?
It might be. I just remember a lot of Digital Blood.
Last Blood is the most recent one where it feels like a Fulci film. It's so dang bloody. I do also think it has to do with the directors that they worked with, because when Schwarzenegger was making his initial bid at stardom, like moving from bodybuilding, quitting bodybuilding to go into movies, he worked right away with John Milius and Oliver Stone writing, and then to James Cameron. He had those are the talent, the kind of talents he had behind him. Sylvester Stallone, he, not to knock some of those people, there's some good directors there, but it's just a different world. There's like a good 10-year gap between their starts, and the movies change a lot in those 10 years too. So,
yeah, I was just watching Prisoner of Second Avenue, and I forgot that he was in there. He shows up and
Simon,
basically gets mugged by Jack Lemmon, or I think he also mugs Woody Allen in Bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And just smaller roles. Machine Gun Joe Viterbo is probably my favorite thing that he's done. But
Death Race 2000. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if anybody else is going to say like that's the role for Schwarzenegger, but he does comedy and action, and just he's hilarious in that movie for me.
Yeah, he is. That's a legitimately great movie, whether by accident or design. I love that movie.
Oh yeah, it holds up too. All these years later,
it does.
Yeah, I this month, the intent of this month was to watch more Stallone stuff, and I'm not, it's not that I'm not excited. Obviously, I programmed the month. This is one of the few months this year that I did program a lot. I mean, this year I gave a lot of deference to a lot of other people to program the year, because I like watching things that other people find to be interesting or exciting, and this is one of the few months that I actually programmed, and this was the movie that I was most excited to watch. But there are, the other things that I'm watching this month, I think are, I don't know. They're very tonally different from this. This is.
Are you at liberty to say what you're watching?
I am. So Detox.
Oh boy.
Right.
That's ICU, I think, isn't it? I think
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Which opened in one screen theatrically here in Oklahoma City.
I remember getting that on a VCD.
Yeah.
And it wasn't available in the US other than through VCD. I ordered it through maybe like a Hong Kong site or something.
Also watching Fist, F-I-S-T.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an early one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the labor union
that's
one,
a drum.
right? Yeah.
Rhinestone.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Lord help.
Good luck.
And then Paradise Alley.
That's another one in a series.
Yeah.
So you've got some serious stuff and some crazy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't watch Copland.
Well, and that's the thing. Maybe I should have asked people some things to watch, because it seems like I may have fucking picked some bad stuff.
Rhinestone is legendary for being one of Stallone's worst movies. And now I've already forgot. Oh, Detox and / ICU. That's, it's not as bad as people say, but it's not good.
No.
I think Paradise Alley and Fist, I remember seeing those as a kid and being fine with them, but it wasn't Rocky. So it was odd to me, these aren't, and even though it sounds like Fist would be, they're not really.
It's like watching Lords of Flatbush when I was a kid and just being like, what the hell? Why is Henry Winkler not being the Fonz? He looks like the Fonz. Why isn't he the Fonz?
Yeah, that's exactly the type of feeling you'd get from anything Stallone did between Rocky movies.
Well, now a whole new generation of people know him for those Creed movies, which is, and again, I had seen those, but he's not really the main character in those movies, which, is fine. I think they actually used him rather well in those movies as I would say a supporting character. That's a legacy sequel, legacy reboot, I guess one might call it. It's more well made than most of those kinds of movies tend to be. But, the other thing about Stallone is, and this is another thing we didn't watch this month, and I know people have certain feelings about it, but the Expendables movies, he wrote those movies, right? At least the first one or two.
He did the first one, I know for sure. I haven't checked the credits on the others for a while. I just saw the fourth one. I liked the first three, but the fourth is one of the worst things I've seen in a long time. A long time.
But I remember not caring for the first one very much. And really, it was so Terry Crews for me. Whenever Terry Crews is on screen, I'm just like, okay, yeah. And he's got that big, crazy fucking gun. I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. I think he even dances with it and stuff. I'm just like, this guy is amazing. Everything else, especially when they get into all the Dolph Lundgren horse shit with his character, I'm just like, who gives a rat's ass about any of these fuckers?
That's fair. I think that's fair to say.
Thank you.
But hey, we finally got Stallone and Schwarzenegger on screen together. That's all the Expendables movies kind of are for.
For that, you want Escape Plan. That's actually a pretty solid movie.
Is it? I've never seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen Escape Plan 2, Hades, but Escape Plan, the original, was pretty solid.
Which is the one that has Dave Bautista in it?
Ooh,
is it the third one? Or there? I thought there's
I think there are three of them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The first one's the only one you want to see.
Yeah,
it is. I agree with Mike. It's pretty solid. It's good, and it's kind of a shame that that kind of stuff. By the time that stuff came out, nobody cared anymore. No. It seems
the VOD movies. That's what they were.
Well, I mean,
I did see that
plan
at the
was
theater.
in theaters.
Yeah.
Like Schwarzenegger's other comeback attempts, like The Last Stand, and wasn't necessarily a comeback attempt. Just like I'm stopped being governor. Now I'm going back to movies, and the time had passed him by. People didn't care. I cared. I mean, I enjoyed them, but
I liked The Last Stand a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't care for like Collateral Damage and some of those more straightforward action things.
Is Collateral Damage the one with the terrorists? That's Collateral Damage, right?
The one with the terrorists.
The one with the one that was like a 9/11. It's like a very 9/11 adjacent movie because like the Schwarzenegger's family gets blown up like an Islamic terrorist. The movie came out in like 2002.
You're talking about True Lies?
no.
Oh, Jesus. James Cameron's most
Racist.
Yeah, boy, that movie.
Ooh, I didn't even like that movie when I saw it in theaters. I was just like, wow, this is really fucking racist.
We're putting out a casting call for all vaguely Middle Eastern actors in Hollywood.
I know. Turn it up a notch. Go to not 11. We want you to go to 111.
God, what's the movie with David Suchet where he plays a Islamic terrorist? Jesus Christ.
I don't know. But
That was he was on a plane, right? Was that Passenger 57 or
was it Executive Decision?
It was Executive Decision. Yes. Now that's a movie.
Yeah, that you're not gonna make it. You are. Yeah, the one where Seagal dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Best choice made in that movie.
Oh yeah. But yeah, to your point from earlier, this movie, you talked about what was it, Terminal Velocity or Vertical Limit. I mean, it felt like action movies at this time were just like extreme sports movies because it was like there were so many skydiving movies. It was like a trend to be like there was Vertical Limit, and I'm trying to remember
Extreme Ops. Remember Extreme Ops?
Like feels like each Baldwin brother was in one of these skydiving movies.
Snipes was in Drop Zone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot. But yeah, the extreme thing was quite a trend for a while. Unfortunately, in this too, with the Max Perlich and the other guy. I just hearing them talk like they're Jeff Spicoli's and talking about like righteous air hockey and just had to laugh.
It was a bit on the nose, as they would say. I wasn't too sad when they got mowed down towards the midpoint of the movie. I like the movie's the movie's stylistic choice of anytime a character that's been introduced already dies, they cut the audio of the gun going off for whatever reason. It's an interesting stylistic choice, but when one of those characters dies, it happens when the helicopter pilot dies, the Ralph Waite character, they do the same thing.
Slow-mo of the machine gun, right?
Yeah, and they cut the audio. You don't hear the machine gun go off.
Well, that's for the Trevor Jones score to come up. Or sorry, it's not probably Trevor Jones. He was in Mr. Monty Python. I can't remember. Trevor, whose name? Trevor Jones. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking, Terry Jones was in Monty Python. But yeah, that Terry Jones, or Jesus Christ, just comes right up on the soundtrack, and you're like, oh. I mean, they do so many variations of the one theme. It's kind of wild.
But slow motion is the way you really want to see that extreme kid go. I mean, really, I took pleasure in that, especially after that. Oh, did you catch that thunder? Radical man. That's some of the worst dialogue.
So, did y'all realize that there's a sequel to Cliffhanger coming out, and they're going to start filming it at some point this year?
Yeah, they've been talking about a sequel since 1983. I think. I mean,
I think it might actually be happening finally.
I've heard of something about it recently.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's called Cliffhangers or
They're following the Twister model, which, by the way, Mike, I know we didn't talk about Twisters, but Twisters might be one of the best films I've seen in theaters this year.
What?
Yeah, Twisters is a lot of fun, man.
Wow.
Okay, Rod.
One.
Well,
I was at the premiere here when they had Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones and all those people.
I make Glenn Powell.
I think Glenn Powell is a thing.
I felt really bad that I didn't love it, but I didn't love it.
It's fine. I mean, it's spectacle for spectacle's sake. I get it. And then, look, in a lot of ways, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cliffhanger movie actually happens, because Twisters, which is a legacy sequel in the vein of a 90s action movie, made a fuck ton of money. And I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden people are like, all right, 90s properties that made money then, can we do this again now? I'm not going to be remotely surprised if Cliffhanger 2 It would be cliffhangers, right? That they just slap an S on the end, and there you go.
That's what I always heard it was going to be. Except there was the thing Mike talked about, the dam, which you can talk about, Mike. Let's say not that. Kind of an odd way to go.
Yeah, but yeah, it's very like, oh, now he's being called over here where there's this thing. It kind of reminded me of The Bridge. I think that was a Joss Whedon one. Very similar. I mean, it's basically Die Hard on a dam kind of thing. And this was Die Hard on a mountain, really, was the way that this worked. Yeah, what I remember reading last about Cliffhangers is that it's now Walker and his daughter, I want to say.
Yeah.
Or is it Tucker and his daughter?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Stallone and a family member, because that tends to be the way legacy sequels go.
Mm-hmm.
And I have heard that the daughter is the thing, because that seems to be the case. That's not knocking it. That's just how these things go now. But yeah, that's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, and it's basically Axel F.
Pretty much.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. To be honest, like, I mean, they really... Twisters is, I guess, a good example of reviving the property, but like we take for granted these movies. Like I know it's cliche to say they don't make them like this anymore, but they really don't make them like this anymore.
No, not at all.
Even the worst version of this type of, like John Lithgow, like Ricochet with Denzel Washington. That's not at this level, but I would kill for something like that to be in theaters now. Just because I just miss this type of movie.
The spectacle of it all is really well. And I mean, like I said, Twisters, you might not have enjoyed it, Rod, but there was a level of spectacle to that movie that I have not seen in a movie in a while. And, you know, again, it made enough money that I think that this might now be a thing that they start maybe looking at. And I'm not going to complain, because I think action movies for the longest time have been taking themselves way too fucking seriously. And I would love a return to people actually being able to go to the movies to have a little bit of fun. That might be a little, maybe I'm saying it's a little overrated in this day and age, given the state of the world. But I mean, being able to go to a movie and actually just sit there and enjoy yourself for 2 hours with some dumb shit is really, I think, in this day and age, underrated, because they do not make movies like this anymore. But again, like you said, Ron, Twisters is a good example of maybe the trends going in a different direction, which I would be perfectly okay with. I think that if these kinds of movies make money, them coming back to do a legacy sequel, I'm all for it. I mean, at some point, Stallone will be able to do it. Look at Indiana Jones 5. I mean, good.
I tried.
Yeah. I mean, it is nice, too, that you didn't have to watch 25 movies and 5 TV shows to know what's going on in this, that it was a nice standalone film, and that it didn't become a franchise. That was kind of nice.
I was surprised. All the, Stallone has done a lot of sequels. Wow. And the fact that this didn't get one still surprises me, because it was a solid hit. I mean, I think it opened like a week or two before Jurassic Park, so it got, eaten, for lack of a better word, after that. But it made a decent amount of money. It was a hit.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty well received.
$70 million budget, box office of $255 million. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. And speak of silly fun, I think the scene in this that does that the most might be where Stallone and one of the bad guys are fighting, and then they sort of sled down each other down the mountain. It's like
that is so
almost
funny.
It's like this far removed from Christmas Vacation, where they're going down the metal sled super fast.
Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah,
when they're coming down from the top of the chalet
Piz Gloria.
Coming down, Piz Gloria, and Bond is there trying to kick the shit out of Blofeld.
Yeah, that's the fun. I mean, that's the one of the few scenes in the movie where I was like, this is what this movie could have been.
Oh, yeah.
This is what this movie, in a lot of ways, should have been. And the fact that it's not is a bummer. I mean, for me, the fact that this movie's not more fun is a bummer. Or not more fun, but that it doesn't understand kind of what its successes are, and it's kind of interested in something else. And I will say, we haven't really talked about it, and we've talked about everybody else, but John Lithgow doing a British accent.
It just reminded me of his Progresso soup commercials so much.
I had forgotten that he did an excellent in this. I was genuinely surprised. It's been that long since I've seen it. I'd totally forgotten about that.
I love how the trivia for this movie is like half of it is this person was considered for the villain role. This person was it was like, can we just combine all of these? IMDb, clean up your trash, because it's just so many like, well, David Bowie was going to be this bad guy, and I'm like, okay, how much of this is real and how much of this is just fantasy casting?
I mean, they wanted David Bowie supposedly, which that would have been interesting. And I mean, Chris Walken was in the movie and left the movie. I mean, here's the thing. In a lot of ways, this movie does remind me of, I mean, like I mentioned, On Deadly Ground, because the idea that John Lithgow and Sylvester Stallone would ever be able to fight one another is never addressed, which is why John Lithgow essentially dies the way that he does. Sylvester Stallone is not threatened at all by John Lithgow as a physical specimen, and that's kind of a problem in this kind of movie. I'm not a huge fan of these kinds of movies. Just, the villain dies essentially in 2 seconds. It's very Seagal adjacent. Seagal essentially never takes a punch in any of his movies. What's the movie with Henry Silva? He just kills Henry Silva in 2 seconds. Like, he gets his hands on him and just breaks his neck immediately. It's like, okay, well, the movie's over, I guess. This movie kind of had that same thing where it's like, am I really going to take John Lithgow as a physical threat to Sylvester Stallone? I have a hard time believing that. That doesn't track.
Once upon a time, he was, like, I'm thinking of Blowout, Brian De Palma's Blowout. He was physically imposing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was before he really became known as John Lithgow, before he was nominated for Oscars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He was scary.
He was.
Yeah.
Remember him? He towered over Robin Williams in The World According to Garp.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he was a very physically imposing person. To see him versus like even Cliff Robertson in Obsession, some of those like De Palma roles that he was doing. But yeah, from what I understand, he was taller than Harry from Harry and the Hendersons, and they had to give Harry some lifts.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. That tracks.
Thank you.
Totally tracks.
Yeah, I just wish Stallone had. I mean, again, we get the fight at the end of the movie, which oddly reminded me of GoldenEye, them fighting on the side of the mountain in the helicopter. But it's a 2-second fight. It's 2 seconds, and that's it. We finally get to see Stallone get his hands on the villain who has killed so many people that Stallone either knew or was friends with or cared about, and then it's just 2 seconds. And I don't know. I'm more of a fan of action movies where the villain actually gets somewhat of a comeuppance as opposed to just falling off the side of a cliff in a helicopter and that's the end. I don't know. For me, some of the I guess the question I have is sitting here and thinking about it. How good of an action movie is this movie? Is it a really good action movie, or is it just kind of a weird mountain rescue heist movie?
I think it's a solid movie, period. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a great action movie. I don't even think it's Rennie Harlin's best action movie. I would put Die Hard 2 in that slot easily.
Yeah.
And Long Kiss Goodnight is another one I'd put up there.
Oh, yeah.
I'd put Deep Blue Sea up there before I would put this. But yeah, I just think it's a fairly solid commercial blockbuster. It's not insulting your intelligence too much, only here and there. But it's really well made, and I don't mind the model work, the obviously green screen effects. Like, I'll take that any day over CGI creating stuff from nothing. I really do just miss that practical effects for the most part, or just I guess green screen's not really practical effects, but it's different than let's just create everything on a computer. I just think there was more imagination to it that I think is missed. And I get that people, if you didn't grow up with it, it looks fake. I get that, but I'm old. That's where my preferences lie.
Well, I mean, it was something, Mike, you mentioned with Axel F. I mean, a lot of that movie is done practically, and it benefits from it. And, I mean, should a sequel to Cliffhanger come out, I would assume most of it's going to be done practical on location, which, I mean, should be a positive for a movie like this being, a sequel to this being something worth watching. And I guarantee you it'll probably be more of an action movie than this is, because everybody remembers this movie as an action movie. But if you actually sit down and watch it, it's not in a lot of ways a action movie, quote unquote. It's kind of a lot of things mashed together because it is, I mean, there is a Point Break heistness to this movie. There is this weird attempt at a character study in this movie, but in terms of it being, just a action movie, it's not what I was expecting it to be given the previews, given what I've heard about it, given the expectation, given that it's a Sylvester Stallone movie. It's, again, like Stallone we've already alluded to it. He kind of injects himself into things, and I don't think that that's a good idea. Because, again, like, these kinds of movies don't need to be serious. They need to be fun. They need to have a sense of fun to them that is felt throughout. And, yeah, like you said, Rod, it's a good movie. But tonally, it could have been a lot more consistent throughout. I mean, imagine if something like Speed, speaking of Twister, and Jan de Bont, like, imagine if Speed wasn't as fun as it is, and, the end of the movie, with Dennis Hopper and Keanu Reeves, I mean, if that scene would have felt completely unearned, the way some of the stuff in this movie feels unearned with Stallone. Because at the end of the movie, it was like, keep all your arms and legs in the vehicle. It's like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a case of Stallone could not deliver those the way Schwarzenegger could. Or the way Michael Rooker is.
Right. Michael Rooker, star of this movie, really, for me. Like, spend just about as much time with him as we do Stallone. And I kind of wish we spent more time with... It's weird, though, mentioning Michael Rooker and Sylvester Stallone is also technically in the MCU.
Oh, yeah.
In Guardians of the fucking Galaxy.
Reavers, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Reavers, right?
Yeah, Reavers, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was getting confused with Serenity.
Now, Mike, do you remember, was this the one that the marketing was that'll blow you through the back of the theater? Is that this, or was that a Die Hard sequel? I might be confusing, but I do remember this had the big "hold on," like the poster was mostly the words "hold on," and Cliffhanger was really small, and the trailers were scored to some classical thing that has become the cliche for all action trailers after this. Lots of jumping and slow motion, and it was really well marketed. I remember that. It got you excited for it, and yeah, it did, Chris. It did set it up as like an action movie. Period.
Yeah, the previews kind of sell this movie in a different direction. By the way, it'll blow you through the back wall of the theater is Die Hard 1.
Oh, Die Hard 1. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll blow out your back of the theater.
It's kind of more of a thriller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With some hard action in it. I'd agree with that. And a lot of sets when they're at night outside.
Oh, yeah.
Seems to be on a set.
God, yeah. Some of the set-bound nature of this movie is just ill-advised. Very ill-advised. And again, for having shot on location clearly for so much of this movie, to have some of those sets just, oh, Jesus, just no.
We had so much fun with this movie, though, and it was so nice going back to it. And it was great to see the TriStar logo again, the Carol Co. or Co. I think some people pronounce it now. Logo. I mean, that used to be for me the sign of quality because I was just like, oh, good, this movie's going to be violent. I love it.
And gasoline at $1.46 a gallon.
Oh God, yeah,
yeah. The Carolco logo that was a sign of not necessarily quality.
No,
but a fun time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where like it seemed like everything that they did. They had Schwarzenegger movies too, and movies, and
Terminator 2.
Yeah,
and Total Recall as well.
That's right. And then they had stuff like Lockup,
Deep Star 6, Angel Heart.
That's right. Johnny Handsome. They had some odd things in there.
Jesus Christ!
Did you guys hear what Stallone almost was in instead of this? Like, they were working on a movie with him and John Candy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The John Hughes
Neighbors. Yes.
John Hughes deal, yeah.
Yeah. And then that fell through and he ended up taking this.
John Candy just had to die.
Yeah.
There he.
Jeez.
Oh, also,
when people tell me that John Candy's been dead for 30 years, I'm like, get the fuck out of town.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
The fact that this opens with, well, not opens, but during the credits, special appearance by Paul Winfield. 1, feels so TV movie. 2, it makes you think he's just in a cameo. He's throughout the whole thing. I mean, not like he's Michael Rooker and he's in a ton of scenes, but he has a number of them from start to finish. It's just the oddest billing.
He's right there at the end of the film. I mean, he's kind of doing almost a Vince Larkin type thing, but he's not, actively on the mountain trying to, catch up with Cameron Poe or something.
Right. I don't remember him being through the whole deal. I just seeing that credit again. I thought, oh, he's just going to be here at the first to set up the plot. And then no.
Well, and I kept expecting them to be in on it too. Like
True.
even going back to it, and I just maybe that's because of him as Captain Tyrell, where it's just like, I try, but it's so hard. He's got the little thing and like Khan's controlling his mind, But no, he's not in on it. It's just that dastardly Bruce McGill. Such a quick role by Bruce McGill. It makes me so sad.
No kidding. I was like, wait, was that Bruce McGill? They didn't just kill Bruce McGill, did they?
I know.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. In this timeline, they killed him, but he's still alive in other timelines.
Yes. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I mean, would it have been better if we, instead of Cliffhanger, we'd gotten Gale Force, the Die Hard in a Hurricane movie that Stallone was going to do otherwise?
That was another Carol, can't even say it now. Carol
Cow? Yeah.
movie. That was a legendary one of those unmade projects. But didn't they turn it into something else?
Well, I know that Hard Rain was very similar to that.
Yeah,
I was about to say the Keanu Reeves movie, right?
That was Christian Slater.
Slater, that's right. Keanu Reeves is a Chain Reaction.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say there was another heist in a storm movie recently. And also
the Hurricane Heist.
Thank you.
That's right.
A terrible movie.
Hard Rain.
It could use some Rex Lynn yelling, because Rex Lynn is everything when yelling, which is always.
I love that.
I interviewed that guy several years ago because he's maybe you don't know. He's not born in Oklahoma City, but he grew up in Oklahoma City. And when I interviewed him, he was on CSI Miami, and I have no idea why I was contacted to interview him or something, but strange man. Really strange man.
Really?
I believe it. It's weird to me that he's essentially the second billed villain in this movie. Like of all the actors, I'm John Lithgow and Rex Lynn.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about him, but
fun.
Yeah, fun interview. So you wonder if Reba McEntire saw this movie and was like,
oh, was she married to him for a while, or
no? She's like, they're dating like now.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow,
they're like in it now.
Wow,
they're
he must be a huge fan of Tremors, which is weird that she's in that movie. Speaking of good Lord,
yep.
Yeah, he was kind of a rabbit's foot though to Rennie Harlan because he gets cast in a lot of Harlan films, including Cutthroat Island and The Long Kiss Goodnight. But I think I mostly know him from cinematic classics like The Postman.
Oh dear Jesus!
Or Rush Hour, Breakdown. I seem to remember him being good in that. And then,
Breakdown,
yeah,
that's a good movie.
It's a damn good.
Yeah, talk about kind of movies they don't make. Those type of thrillers, those adult, not like pornographic, but just adult minded.
Yeah, it might have been R-rated.
Solid thrillers. Yeah,
fucking Kurt Russell, man. You can't get better than him.
Nope.
Is he in your Last Action Heroes book? Because he should be.
Not, but he should. Yeah. I think he mentioned, but he's not one of the main characters. Probably because he had so much of a run in the 70s, and then the 90s is when he really hit again. The sort of 80s were not as successful for him as those two.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because Escape from New York was right at the tail end of the 70s, and then The Thing was, I know, critically
82,
hated, and that was 82. Yeah.
But yeah, that Kurt Russell, I'm for anything with Kurt Russell.
Same.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Breakdown, I highly recommend it.
Same. I just rewatched it last year, and it holds up so much.
Speaking of Rex Lynn, if y'all haven't seen Under the Silver Lake, which he's in, it's pretty good. It's a fucking weird movie. It's a fucking weird-ass movie.
Covered that on the projection booth. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but he's in that, and he's also the narrator in the critically acclaimed A Million Ways to Die in the West, which everybody loved, I remember. So many people loved that movie.
Yeah.
Why? What? You good Lord.
I am a Seth MacFarlane completist, my friend.
Oh, God. Boy. Good for you, I guess. Good for you, I guess. That's...
I just wanted to see how much they stole from Back to the Future 3. Because when I saw the trailers, I was like, this looks like Back to the Future 3.
Funny.
So, speaking of Rennie Harlan, to go back to Rennie Harlan. Of all the stuff he's done, like he's kind of been in movie jail for a while, but he's made I've seen a couple of things that I really liked. One was Devil's Pass, which was like a found footage thing. That's on a snowy mountain. And it's not a great movie, but it's really well made, I thought. And then don't laugh, but have you ever seen Mindhunters? It's like
I think I also might have bought that on VCD.
Yeah, it's a 10 Little Indians sort of take with I think Val Kilmer's in it.
I was gonna say Val Kilmer, yeah.
LL Cool J, Johnny Lee Miller.
That wasn't bad. I do remember
not bad.
That.
Yeah. And then and again, this is not a quote unquote good movie, but it's fun. It's 12 Rounds, which is something he did with John Cena before John Cena made comedies. And it's like almost like one of those game movies, like you have to go from this part of town to this part of town to, there's 12 rounds of this sort of thing to save I think it's his wife or something.
Interesting.
It's a fun thriller and an action sort of thing that, it's one of those low budget deals that didn't make a, huge splash at the box office, but it's also one of those things that has become a franchise on VOD, like the equals to this thing with, not connected at all, but
they got to have those WWE stars to star in things like Randy Orton in 12 Rounds 2 and Dean Ambrose in 12 Rounds 3.
Yeah.
I don't think that Rennie Harlan gets the credit he deserves because he did the first Exorcist film.
Oh, dear Jesus.
Exorcist the beginning.
Swear to God. Wow, Mike, we had to go there, huh? One of 2 Exorcist prequel movies.
Yeah, he was the one that saved that movie.
Sure. There's nothing that could have saved that movie, or in a lot of ways, that franchise passed to the 3rd movie.
But then he's also like, I tried like the Legend of Hercules that came the same year as The Rock's Hercules, which was not good anyway. But this one had one of the guys from Twilight,
Kellen Lutz.
Ooh, wow.
Like it's awful.
Wow. The one with The Rock's not much better, if it's better at all.
Oh, man.
It's a little better, but not by much.
That's like
I don't
days when I worked in a video store and they would release the cheap Russian animation knockoffs, and you're just I'm buying the Little Mermaid. It's like, no, that's not the Little Mermaid that you're expecting, ma'am. No, it says right here. I'm like,
have fun with that.
Yeah,
exactly. But he still works, and I kind of want to see some of these.
Oh, I'll take
see some of these other things he's put out that I've never even heard of.
Do you know what I want to see? I want to see Skip Trace with Jackie Chan and Johnny Knoxville.
I almost started that one night. Never did.
I am going to be watching this very soon. This looks right up my alley. And you even have Fan Bing Bing in here.
Right, good old Fan Bing Bing before she disappeared.
Before she said things about the government she shouldn't have. Actually, it was tax stuff. But yeah, there's a reason she's not in the Meg sequel.
Yeah.
Well, and it's ironic that Jackie Chan is in that movie, given that we know he is, as they would say, a big fan of the Chinese government.
He definitely is.
It's a little bit of a shame that Jackie Chan is kind of a piece of shit, but, do what you can.
Didn't he also disown one of his kids?
Because they're gay? Sure did.
Yeah.
Nice job, Jackie. It's okay. Apparently, Michelle Yeoh was like, he's kind of an asshole. So, Michelle Yeoh kind of I would say everybody loves Michelle Yeoh, so probably, believe Michelle Yeoh and Jackie Chan, maybe a little problematic, unfortunately, but sounds interesting, and I kind of low-key love Johnny Knoxville in most everything he's in. So,
yes.
Same.
Speaking of, what was that, The Last Stand?
Yeah, with Schwarzenegger. Yeah, he's in there. Yeah.
See, it all goes back to either Schwarzenegger or Stallone.
Pretty much.
All of it. I do miss those days of those guys fighting.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the glory days. You missed them, Chris.
I know. Look, I've seen him after the fact. Look, and that's the thing. I mean, Schwarzenegger stuff, I think, I don't know. We're going to be watching Commando forever. And I think Commando holds up as like one of the best action movies, pure action movies ever made. And, again, I'm hoping that I see something this month with Stallone. Given what I'm watching, probably not. But y'all have mentioned some other Stallone things that I will check out. But it feels like in a lot of ways, there's no universe where Stallone could ever outshine Schwarzenegger in terms of, like you said, Rod, being a action star. Stallone wanted to be an actor with a capital A, which is fine. I mean, I understand, but I think it's more exciting and interesting to be entertaining and less serious in terms of what Schwarzenegger and Stallone were effectively both trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I want to read you a couple of fun facts about Cliffhanger. So once upon a time, we had this great magazine called Spy Magazine. And it was kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It was kind of like a investigative journalism magazine, but humorous. Anyway.
A little Vice, a little National Lampoon.
Yeah. In 1993, they did a summer movie preview that I always remember. It was hilarious. And also it was right before like the internet came out and everyone, learned about movies that way. I think this may have been the first I'd heard of Cliffhanger. Anyway, they have a couple points that I wanted to read. So creative differences. Production of the movie had to be shut down on 2 separate occasions because Carolco failed to pay the crews. And Stallone's performance as a death-defying mountain climber was somewhat hindered by his intense fear of heights.
Oh, God.
Source told Spy, "We would be shooting 800 to 900 feet off the ground, and he just didn't want to go up there. All of the major action in the film was done with a stunt double, about 95%.
Wow.
A much publicized incident last year in which Stallone reportedly injured his hand climbing a cliff actually occurred on a soundstage." So there you go. And I noticed in the credits, there are 3 doubles listed for him. A lot. That's a lot.
Can I just say, if you sign up to be in a movie called fucking Cliffhanger,
yeah,
you're not going to be on the fucking ground in a movie called Cliffhanger, Stallone. But maybe stick with Rocky if you want a terrestrial role, my friend, because Cliffhanger is just on the face of it. That's not.
Was that on the face?
I think that was the face and then Rocky cliffs. Yeah,
it's all over the place.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this and also it mentions like it was like $40 million over budget, but and I forgot about this. The spectacular trailer has been enthralling audiences right up until the very moment Stallone's face appears, at which point laughter typically ensues. That kind of was the case, and now it happens with M. Night Shyamalan movies. Mm-hmm. People laugh when they see his name in the trailer, but that's where Stallone was at this point in his career. Like, people were done with him, and it's kind of amazing he turned out for this. But they did a great job selling it. Marketing. This was incredible.
Hang on.
Yeah, I think the marketing for the movie, in a lot of ways, for as fun as this movie is, the marketing oversells the movie, which is fine. Hey, I've seen plenty of movies recently, Civil War, that have that the movie looks nothing like the reality that the trailer is selling. So, at least this is somewhat closer. Yeah,
You're
sorry.
just a hater.
I know.
You're triggered by Alex Garland.
Yeah, that's why I bought a $300 Annihilation poster that hangs up in the living room of my house. I must hate the guy. I really just don't like the movies that he makes.
So triggered.
I know.
Speaking of controversy, so I wanted to ask you, Mike, if you remember this. I have a memory of there being reports that they had to reshoot the scene where Rex Lynn is shooting at the rabbit. They had to reshoot that to show the rabbit lives.
Yes, I do remember that. And Stallone paid out of pocket to reshoot that, if memory serves.
Yeah. People live.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a real bad guy to shoot that rabbit.
Mm-hmm. But he did, look at what he did with that money and everything.
Bunch of fucking bleeding hearts. Shooting the fucking rabbit. Man, that's the concern in this movie. It's not the murdering of people. It's the murdering of a rabbit. Yeah.
No one complained about the bats, though.
My God.
Well, from what I understand, the bats were digital. I read that today. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But I think maybe they were put in post, but I don't know.
You could tell some of them definitely were. Today I noticed that even some of them look like they're on a loop. You sort of see
back and forth. They're a sprite. What is going on here?
But I do remember
this new thing called an animated GIF. It's on my desktop.
It's a dancing baby.
It's a guy who's doing construction work, and it says "coming soon." Under construction.
Jesus Christ.
It's on the front page of my GeoCities right now.
Wow. GeoCities, huh? Never heard of that. Anything else we want to talk about with Cliffhanger?
I like Stallone's line early too when I guess it was Janine Turner. He's talking about going back up the mountain. He doesn't want to, and he says, "You just lose the feel." So much like that.
Those character building scenes are about as believable as the scenes of Schwarzenegger being Alyssa Milano's father at the beginning of Commando, petting a deer, making her a sandwich. Just, we get it. I don't need to see it. This is goofy as fuck. Please don't show me this, because all I want to do is just have a loop of Schwarzenegger petting that deer. It's just a loop of just in perpetuum. Yeah.
And also, I wondered after this viewing, after the opening with Sarah falling and then you have the money falling, it's like, did every character get their gear at the checkout line at TJ Maxx? Cheapest shit, breaking and snapping. And
I like how Sylvester Stallone is like, no, it's my fault that she died. And it's like, no, it's actually your friend's fault that she died, because he took a inexperienced climber up into God knows where.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know how they got up there. Yeah. Mountain Nookie, as they would say.
Mountain Nookie.
Mountain Nookie. That's going to be the name of my dispensary when I open it in Colorado. Come on down to Mountain Nookie. You buy $100 worth of weed and get a couple free pre-rolls at Mountain Nookie. So starting with you, Rod, and then Mike, final thoughts on Sylvester Stallone's Cliffhanger.
It was fun to revisit. I think this third viewing is going to be my final Cliffhanger viewing. I don't think I need to see it again, unless a sequel finally comes out, in which case I might rewatch it one more time just to get in the spirit of it. But I think I can move on again to rewatch some other Stallone movies instead, maybe fill in the spots I haven't. There aren't that many, but some, like Escape Plan 3, The Extractors.
Expendables 5, coming soon, more than likely.
Or I hope not. I hope not.
VOD calls, baby. VOD calls. There are 5 sequels to The Scorpion King. If you didn't know that was a thing, go check them out. I've seen all of them now. And, if something makes money once, it can make money again. Maybe. What about you, Mike?
Fast forward 40 years, and Rod's in this old folks' home, and the TV's on, holographic TV by now, and it's Cliffhanger starts, the music swells. Said I'd never watch this again. I don't need to start breaking my word. And he crawls across with his walker, getting over there. Or is it his Tucker? He finally gets there. And
Street, get run over.
So I'd never do it again. No sequel ever came. He yells at a cloud. I love the movie. I still wish they would have done the Walker Tucker gag. Still think that no bullets, bitch is just a horrible, horrible line.
It's the funniest line in the whole fucking movie. It's the funniest line in the whole fucking movie.
Michael Rooker, continues to own my heart even after he killed that bird in the Suicide Squad. But at least that bird got its revenge and ate his brains. So, I thought it was fantastic. I love Cliffhanger, and I'm excited to see it again. I just won't bring my Blu-ray copy over to Rod's house.
And Janine Turner, I would come back.
I know, me too. She is just so adorable. I mean, keep your Rob Morrows. Give me her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is one of the movies this year I was definitely the most excited to watch. Just again, because it was one of those things where, again, I'd seen the trailer a bunch of times, and it's the Stallone movie that has the British John Lithgow, which the British John Lithgow of it all really just sets it over the top. But I don't think I'll be revisiting it unless Cliffhangers comes out. But I think if Cliffhangers comes out, which it sounds like it may be coming out in the next 6 to 8 months, maybe even the next year, because they are supposedly filming it this summer, and the summer is still going. I don't know. I think it's fun enough, and I think it being fun enough is a good thing. I don't think it's as fun as I was expecting it to be. I don't think it's as fun as I was hoping it to be, but those are me problems and less the movie problems. But at the same time, the Sylvester Stallone of it all does seem to be part of it, part and parcel to kind of the movie maybe not being as fun as it could have been. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think you should check it out if you've never seen it. But to both of your points, I think there are better Rennie Harlin action movies, namely Die Hard 2. So on that note, we'll take a break, play some ads, and we'll come back and we'll talk about what we're talking about in the next episode.
You ever play hide and seek? What makes that game so much fun? It's when the hunter is staring right at you.
One by one, he takes them.
I see you, but you don't see me.
One by one, they fall.
9 dead cops inside of 6 months.
This guy's a different breed.
FBI agent Jake Malloy has followed his trail to this remote outpost.
There's only 10 of you cops. I don't think anyone's gonna be bored.
Now,
This is what I call the witching hour.
one by one,
Jack's missing.
his fellow officers are turning up dead.
Split the building into sections. Each person will clear that area. Life begins with death.
He knows how the killer works.
What are you looking for?
It's him. He's taking trophies.
He knows how he thinks.
You study guys like this, right, Doc? They don't just kill you.
What he doesn't know
Drop the gun! Stop it!
is who the killer is.
Hey, Malloy. Time to see how strong you really are.
Shouldn't you be at home?
It's at my house.
All right, 1311. Oh, west side. Go, go. Wait!
I'm sorry, but Mary can't come to the phone right now.
That's right. On the next episode of the Culture Cast, we're going to be talking about the aforementioned Detox, otherwise known as ICU. And if this is any indication of how it's going to be, it's not going to be great. Colin Gallagher on that episode. So until then, where can people find you, Rod Lott?
At flickattack.com. Also still available at Amazon. Flick Attack Movie Arsenal, Book 1. I am actually working on Book 2 now. I know Mike will find that hard to believe since it took me like 8 years to do the first one, but I am hard at work.
I love it. That's fantastic.
What about you, Mike?
You can find everything that I do over at readingwaymedia.com, including, you may not know this, Chris, but there's going to be an extra episode of the Kolchak tapes coming out. I interviewed a author of a Kolchak fiction compendium, and it was really good. So one last Kolchak tapes until we come back with a interview with Darren McGavin from the grave.
Yeah, I was about to say that the podcast that never dies, the Kolchak tapes.
Just every couple of years, we do a little bonus episode over there.
Got to check in. You just, got to keep the people, just give them a little drip feed. Give them a little more. Because, as they say, there's no better Kolchak podcast on the internet. I know that for a fact, even now. So, I'm on that show. But and you can find that show over at weirdingwaymedia.com along with all the other shows that we work on, the collective that is Weirding Way Media. You can find all that there. You can find the Projection Booth, 80s TV Ladies, the Fomentaries podcast, a whole bunch of things, a whole lot of different things. And Weirding Way Media is where you can find them. Like, rate, and review the Culturecast on iTunes, please. It doesn't matter where else you're listening to it, but iTunes is where it would be helpful for you to interact with the show. So please do that. If you want to hear Mike and I talk about James Bond once a month with our dear friend, Mr. Richard Haddam, you can find that over at patreon.com/culturecast or patreon.com/projection booth at the $10 level. Yeah. Thank you, Rod and Mike, for joining me. It was a lot of fun, even if the movie wasn't necessarily as fun as I was hoping it would be, but I think we had a good conversation. So, and as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.